Episode 11 of the Solos podcast. I think I finally have a grip on the number of the episode, although I sent you the notes for episode 10 today and you informed me that it was actually episode 11. But it's starting to make more sense. I think before we had all these topics, all these different times of recording and them coming out. But it's finally starting to kind of settle in. And it's cool because all of them are like becoming a singularity, which I think
Mm,
is really exciting.
yeah. Yeah, and that's a theme right now with what's happening. There's some awesome things happening with singularity and convergences, and we've been talking about that for a couple episodes now. So, yeah, do we want to recap last episode, or are we ready to jump in? How do we want to kick this off here?
Yeah. Let's recap some of episode 10 because we had episode 9 that's out now. Well, by the time someone's listening to this, obviously it's out. But that was about the fruits of our labor and quantum jumping, belief versus knowing, generating the fruits of our labor. Then we took a little side quest and did a episode with our dude Greg, and we still kind of went into those topics. So, How do you feel you'd like to recap the episode with Greg?
Yeah, I think it's we talked about getting mojo back, right, and being in the flow state, and then the recognition of when we don't feel we're in our flow state, is that also another version of the flow state?
Mm.
So that was interesting to talk about and to think through because I think it was Greg who mentioned it. We'll probably clip this if I have any say over it, but he said something very, very profound about just trusting that this moment that you're in is exactly the one that you should be in, no matter what, even if it feels off. And I've
Hmm.
been working on that for quite some time myself. And yeah, it feels better to have that approach because so often I felt like I was doing something wrong or I shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be happening to me.
Hmm.
And yeah, just that subtle shift of perspective of like, even though this feels shitty, I should be here. There's something here for me. And my eyes stay open, my heart stays open, and I'm able to understand why I might be going through that
Hmm.
without knowing it right away and just trusting that there's a piece of value for me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the things that stick out to me are the words peak performance. Like he mentioned that when on at the beginning of the episode, and or I think it was before we started talking, and that's what stuck with me was like, what are we measuring as peak performance, right? Because we have these, we clearly need to grow, and we clearly need to realize and see the progress we've made. But then if we could get stuck in this kind of like expectation of what the flow should feel like rather than learning how to create and be in that flow whenever we need to, because that's sovereignty. So it's this idea of like, what are we using to measure peak performance, and how does that relate to like our decision making essentially, and how does that then play into everything else? Because it was three men, so we were talking about it from a man's perspective obviously, and I think peak performance is like the biohacking, the spiritual bro male, like the, I'm gonna, my physical body is gonna be so perfect, like the peak, the biohacking, let me slurp some souls eventually, like that's what it gets to, maybe, some people maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like that's what we're talking about here. These are the lines and the choice points of like, if we're measuring peak performance by this certain thing and we're almost worshiping this ideal, then that could lead you down a road that is not actually peak performance.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we brought that full circle. We did some like resolutions for the New Year's at the end. I think it was Greg's again that said something like just surrender to the unknown timeline.
Mm.
And that to me is the flow state because when you're like that's how you know you're connected to God, right? I've heard that several times. It's like, how do I know I'm on the path of God? Well, it disappears. Like I don't know where it's going to go. And that's where the trust comes in because that's what faith is, right? It's like I don't know what this is. So often we want to control, and that's what peak performance means to me is like I know this and I can control this and manipulate this and I'll feel good about this. And then when we don't have any of those things, it's like, oh, it doesn't feel so good. But that's how we know. And that's where the trust comes in because we that's kind of our timeline choice point is when we get to that point, we can go into the fetal position, we can contract, but if we're able to stay open, that's where the miracles happen. That's where unbelievable synchronicities can occur. And that's, I think, what Greg was referring to with like just surrender it to it, just trust it, and let come what is supposed to come in that moment.
Yeah, I think trusting in the unknown became this like, oh, we're walking through this dark tunnel in this cave, like with this torch to like this bright possibility of like the mystery is not this like because when I think a lot of people when we think of unknown, we think of death. It's like that's what's unknown to us, and then we're trying to make all of our life known. We're wanting to we know this, we know this, we know this, and then if we realize we can be psychic, it's like, oh, well, how could I know everything about what's going to happen in my life? And so the unknown is necessary in order to feel actually the full like bliss of everything because
Mm,
there are unknown things coming that are more positive than we could ever imagine.
yes.
And that's where that faith kind of like comes in and has to get checked, right? And like I had
Yeah.
this thought of um when you're going if someone loves roller coasters, right, they're going to this amusement park, it's like this roller coaster that they've been waiting to go on for years. They're not, maybe they are, but they're likely not going to study every turn of that roller coaster and become an expert on it before they ride it, right? So that
Mm.
when they're in the roller coaster, they know, well, this turn's coming up, this is going to go left and then it's going to go right and then I'm going to go in a loop, so let me get ready and let me, it's like, no, it's a roller coaster. And they might like, it's like it's, and you're jumping onto the roller coaster, but you're not like, it takes the fun out of it if you know every single thing beforehand, because then it removes the surprise. But we
Yeah.
have conditioned ourselves to feel scared of surprise and the
Yeah.
unknown mysterious aspect of what surprise could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'll say a couple things with that. I guess the first thing I'll say is that I learned this in a past relationship with like valuing new experiences. And so often, if we have a new great experience, we try to recreate it. We try to like, oh, that was so fun. That was so amazing. Like, let me kind of manipulate the circumstances so it happens again. Whereas the like we're attached to fun then, right? We're attached to this to the feeling that we had that we when we had that last experience. Whereas the surrender, it kind of implies like I'm okay with any outcome
Hmm.
and not like okay with it. Like, what does that mean? Because sometimes it's not so good, and we trust that too, that that's part of it. And I think if we, I like to think of like bliss or happiness as our pursuit, and part of that formula is to eliminate suffering. And eliminating suffering doesn't mean that you're not going to go through challenging experiences, but it means that when you go through those, you see it for what it is while you're going through it. If you can't, you just kind of trust that it's, like I said, it's valuable in its own way. So again, the polarity example from episodes ago, like holding everything in potential and then just going through it, it's the same type of concept here. And the fear comes in or the manipulation comes in with like, I don't want to experience that thing on the negative timeline, but nothing, you get to this point, nothing is negative. Like even the difficult experiences is like you can still go through that with love. You can
Yeah,
still go through grief with love. You can still go through loss with love. And at that point, I think you eliminate the suffering. Again, not that the circumstances aren't tragic sometimes, but you you're okay with it, I guess. Does that make sense? You're not,
definitely.
it doesn't sound right, but like
No, yeah,
you're open to it.
it does sound right. And I think this is at the core of Buddhism is like, oh, well, life is suffering, right?
Mm.
And we have to create detachment. But
From
there's been
desire, right?
from desire,
Yeah.
right? But that's become all distorted. That's become like one, it has become a focus on the idea of suffering. So that any challenge means it could mean to someone that they're suffering and that they are only fulfilling their Buddhist dharma by
Mm.
accepting the inevitability of suffering in life. So then there's this other level of, oh, I just kind of lost that second level. But with the first one, it's like that's what is creating this need to limit what could come to us in our life,
Mm.
right? It's like
Mm.
we think we think we have to release desire in order to get what we want. But it's desire and the very aspect of desire that gets us what is in our highest alignment. We can't
Mm,
remove desire. That's not possible. Desire is the intention of love. That's
mm,
what desire is at its core. And so it's like the idea of removing desire is very similar to the idea of claiming that the physical body is a sin against God, no matter what. It's like a disassociation factor that is
mm,
then telling you, well, you're not supposed to want everything and be totally okay with everything that keeps coming to you. And you're just going to keep pushing because the pain is worth it, right? That's the thing we're telling us, the pain is worth it. But
mm,
where is the pain becoming a mechanism that keeps us consenting to a distorted initiation?
mm. Where is the pain consenting? What'd
How
you
does
say?
the pain is the pain where does the pain become actually a mechanism for giving consent to distorted reality?
Mm,
So where are we attaching to the pain being so worth it that
mm,
we are then calling more of that in an imbalanced way? That we're actually we have this whole other playing field here, but we are almost worshiping pain and struggle and discipline on and suffering on a subconscious level.
mm.
So where's the line?
I don't know. This is good because I think it's my belief that pain is sort of part of the formula, but like part of what is necessary to come up when you're in pursuit of the desire, right? Like I want to eliminate suffering or like I said, like achieve happiness. And so what's going to happen in my life is going to show me all the places where that's not the case. And to me, that's kind of how I identify pain. So I think we've been talking about this, right? Will we ever get to a point to where it won't be painful or we don't need pain as the lesson? Maybe that's how I would say it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I know the answer to that, but the way that you asked that question sort of implies that that is where we're going. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's again like control and fear, like we've talked about. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be there, but we don't need to consciously use it like that. Um, at a certain level, because what we're in right now is this transition phase. We've been dealing with lives upon lives of pain and of trauma and of suffering and of karma. So pain is a process of getting to that awakened state. It's like we have to look at the tunnel, at the bridge, and see like there is going to be some sort of pain involved in this process. Do I have to suffer through that pain?
Mm,
No, because then there's a whole other Buddhist practice of monks. You know, it's like we've seen monks who light themselves on fire in protest, and they are in the flame. They know how to feel pain but not suffer from the pain, and that's
mm,
what I think creates the ability of like complete sovereign divine will. It's like you know there's going to be challenge and there's going to be pain that shows up with that challenge, but you're not attaching to the suffering of it because the suffering is the attachment to the identity around it rather
mm.
than it just being another perception.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to introduce an analogy here because
Mm-hmm.
I've had my phases of this, but I've been recently taking cold showers. And, you could say what you want about the bro approach to cold plunges and cold showers, but to me, it's like the smallest form of first courage to like do something that I kind of really don't want to do. But second, like there's a point in the shower that I reach with like I just become okay with the way that it feels, even though it's uncomfortable to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm practicing daily that feeling of like, it's here, and every day it gets like, ooh, like that doesn't like shock me as much as it did the day before. So that would be the analogy that I would use is like, I'm kind of purposely bringing on these experiences to practice my, I don't know, it's just my perception of the experience, right? Because nothing else changes. It's the same cold shower every day, but all of a sudden I'm experiencing it differently.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think we're going to train ourselves into that relationship with pain in different ways. Like I had a phase where I was doing cold showers a lot. I was waking up in the morning, doing a cold shower right away, and I eventually I didn't feel like I needed to do that
Yeah.
anymore because I have I create challenge and I create growth and I create friction and obstacles in my life through other ways. Whereas my physical body became such a like tender thing that I am not willing to put it through that in this current moment in my life, in this phase right now. So it's like I don't need to feel that in order to feel the growth and the courage and the bravery and the valor, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like that's why I am so good with going into the dimensional spaces in my mind, because it's like that's where my pain comes in. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have growth. I'm gonna seek out the heaviest stuff I can find. I'm gonna seek out the deepest fear that could be out there, and I'm gonna move through that fear. So that's there's different ways of feeling and experiencing that pain, and it's like I've explained to you, because of the trauma from my life, before, like I still feel physical pain constantly.
Mm,
Like I'm in like a constant pain initiation. And I've
mm,
tried to do the whole thing of, oh, well, maybe if I take more cold showers and I get used to the pain and I have a tolerance to it, then it doesn't change. It
mm.
doesn't change like that, because
Yeah.
my pain initiation is with the stuff that's coming up in my body. So it's
Mm,
like finding that balance and just being willing to drop it when it needs to be dropped. It's like there's going to be times in life for every single thing, and
yeah.
it's like the same thing as like the abusive relationship. Like we don't realize the relationship is toxic until we realize it's toxic, because we've been overlooking the negative implications for that positive hit on the other side. So it's
Mm,
like that's the first thing I learned in a toxic relationship, was like, and it's funny, I actually learned it from Nancy. She's the one that told me it. Was like it's like you can't just keep focusing on the positive thing. Like if
mm,
there is this other thing that is there, it can get outweighed by the positive thing, and we can limit our experience of that positivity because we're actually attached to pain and thinking pain
mm,
has to be a part of that process in that way. Because
mm.
if pain has to be a part of the process, it will show up, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to do that every day for all of our
Right.
life. Again, it's the phases of it.
Yeah. Well, you got me thinking now. Like, am I addicted to the pain because I'm taking cold showers, right? So that's like a thought that's,
And we're going to get into why we could be addicted to the pain, because it's
yeah.
programmed into our subconscious, it's programmed into our unconscious. So it's like, here's the closing of this question. Like
Hmm.
we've gone into chaos and pain and challenge, and we're told that it's necessary for growth, for awakening. And so what point does it stop being an initiatory teacher and start being evidence of a rigged system that feeds on endurance rather than wisdom,
Hmm.
that feeds on productivity and energy, and the giving of that energy rather than the planted sovereignty of wisdom?
Yeah. I think this is good that we're talking about this
Yeah,
today.
and I don't think there's going to be a direct, like, we get. It's like these are
Yeah.
questions that are going to float around for a while, I think. And our whole last episode on Bluer Beam was about weed and about cannabis and about like reaching for cannabis with pain. And
Yeah.
so it's like, it's interesting. Are we judging ourselves for reaching for cannabis because we feel so much subconscious pain, but then we're trying to force ourselves to do, a cold shower or an ice bath? So like, where's the balance between all of it, I guess?
Yeah. I think for me at this point in this conversation right now, I'm wondering myself if, I think the conclusion I'm drawing is that pain has been part of the formula because, to your point, as the programming, because I haven't known another way, right? So I think that's what we're talking about is like, does it have to be, and is it my beliefs that continue to draw painful experiences into my life? Yeah, that's something very interesting to consider because what does that mean? So if that is the truth and I no longer subject myself to that programming, then I'll ask, I think what I asked earlier, is that what we're talking about? Then we won't experience pain? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I don't think it's never experiencing it, but it's knowing that the bliss is catalyzed immediately from it. And so it's like
Mm,
if you think about getting to a Buddhist state of like your body, and then we get to a galactic state of our body where we're learning how to shapeshift and where we're learning how to hold protections and different things, like we're going to be able to prevent that type of pain that we normally think is inevitable if we're stepping into a
mm,
fight or stepping into a battle or stepping, so things are going to
sure.
shift drastically. But it's like now I think 200 years in the future, it's like advanced positive star seeds who are going to another planet to help those beings ascend through the third dimension again. They're going to look at these timelines that are happening and they're going to feel grief. They're going to feel emotional pain. They're going to have things come up that remind them of their time. I'm almost like feeling emotional talking about it. Like their time going through their ascension process where they were going through all of that pain and they were going through all of that suffering. So there's going to be emotional challenge, there's going to be conflict, but it's just another movement of the emotional waveform rather than this worship. Because I think what we're getting to is that we actually have pain on a pedestal and we don't know it, and we're worshiping it in a certain way.
Mm. Okay, so what would the difference be? Is it just a life approach and a mindfulness? Is it how we experience what we experience? Like what do we how do we know that we've kind of broken through this programming?
Yeah, I think it starts with death and our relationship to death, because we automatically see death as pain and we automatically think death in the way that we see it is inevitable. So we think that part of our experience is that we deserve pain, and everybody deserves pain because everybody dies and death is inherently painful. And on
Mm,
one level, there's truth in that there is going to be pain, there's going to be grief. And on another level, death isn't what we've been told that it is, right? So
mm,
we already have an inevitability of pain. We deserve pain. And then we're taught, in school to perpetuate this type of endurance and